In 2020, Black Panther actor, In 2020, Black Panther actor, why can I say that? Start over. Okay. In 2020, Black Panther actor Chad Boseman shocked the world when he died of colon cancer. This is a 43-year-old who kept his stage 3 diagnosis private while continuing to film on the big screen. His death shocked us all, but it also heightened awareness around this illness. And now, recent studies reveal that colon cancer deaths are on the rise for people under the age of 50. In fact, by 2023, colorectal cancer became the leading cause of cancer death for Americans under 50, surpassing breast, surpassing lung, and surpassing other cancers. Joining me now is Dr. Nadia Sanford, a gastroenterologist who is extremely passionate about colorectal cancer screening. Welcome, Dr. Sanford.
Hi, thanks so much.
Yeah. So let's start with the basics. What is colon cancer and what are the symptoms that people should look out for?
So colon cancer usually starts out as something innocuous like a polyp. So it's a small growth in the colon years before you would even see it turn into a tumor, which is basically a 8 to 15-year process going from a small, tiny little polyp that could grow into a tumor. It is the third most common cancer and the second leading cause of cancer death. But it is one of two preventable cancers if people do their appropriate screenings, the other being cervical cancer.
And what age group or sector of population is typically impacted by colon cancer?
Well, as you've alluded to, we've kind of shifted our focus on the younger folks. Before 15, 20 years ago, it was something that was seen in 55, 60-year-olds, which was why initially the screening age was age 50. The older you get, the more propensity you have to have these polyps, and then the more propensity that if you don't have your age-appropriate screening, that these polyps can turn into a cancer later on.
Yeah, it's one of these things that it does seem scary to hear how young people are. We had actor Chadwick Boseman, only 43 years old, and earlier this year we saw a 35-year-old beauty queen out of California die from colon cancer. So why are we seeing colon cancer impacting more and more younger people? What's happened?
Yeah, it's keeping us up at night. It is a shift. It seems like folks born after 1990, we are seeing this happen more often. And unfortunately, when we catch it, it's more at an advanced stage. We don't know why. Of course, we don't know why. We're still trying to kind of pick this up after being recognized over the last several years. We actually just changed the screening age from 50 to 45 a few years ago after seeing this trend upwards. There's some thought processes as to why. Diet, ultra-processed foods, red meats, especially if they are well done. The question is if those carbons, the well done, that little char that you're seeing, if that can cause some problems in terms of altering the DNA in the colon. There's something called the microbiome in your intestinal tract that is good bacteria as well as bad bacteria. And some of these bacteria can also be altered that potentially could be playing a role in terms of these earlier cancers. But again, it's scary. It's 1 in 5 people under the age of 50 are going to be these new diagnoses of colon cancer.
Yeah, and we said we changed it from 50 to 45, but Chadwick was 43. The beauty queen was 35. Why are we waiting so late for testing? Should this be pushed even further back?
Well, the problem with that is cost effectiveness. So, of course, our healthcare system has its pluses and minuses, and we have to look at what is cost effective for the system as a whole. They'll do what are studies for cost effectiveness and kind of test each age and the incidence or how often this cancer is happening to come up with an age. And unfortunately, right now, we're not to the point where it is cost effective to screen any earlier than age 45. Now, remember, we're talking about average risk screening, meaning that there's not a family history or genetic issues. That age changes in terms of how quickly we start the screening process in those folks.
You talked about ultra processed foods, and we're now seeing studies that link the number of alcoholic drinks that a person consumes to colon cancer. So what are you seeing in your research in that arena?
So that study just came out this month about if you do more than 2 alcoholic beverages a day, that may increase your colon cancer risk, especially in the folks that are younger. Again, not knowing the specific reason why, maybe there's an effect on the microbiome from the alcohol. Also, there may be an effect from metabolites from the alcohol when your liver breaks the alcohol down that may affect the DNA in the colon and also contribute.
And you mentioned earlier that, this cancer, colorectal cancers in particular, are actually pretty treatable, right? If we catch these earlier. But studies are showing that colorectal cancers have seen a 1% increase in deaths every single year since 2005, while the mortality rate of every other type of cancer has decreased. Why do you think that is?
Well, part of this is, again, we're talking about the younger folks, and so they don't think that this is going to happen to me. And so some of these symptoms that they are experiencing that may be warning signs in somebody 50 and over, they just kind of, say, well, this is not anything, it's hemorrhoids or it's something else. And so unfortunately, by the time we get to them, it's advanced. If we can catch colon cancer at stage 1 or early, it's 90% or greater curative. So the earlier we get to it, the better your chance for cure is. But again, with folks not being cognizant of what to look for, symptoms to look for, you're changing your stools, the size of the stools, not just rectal bleeding, abdominal pain, bloating, unintentional weight loss. If they're not looking at that and going to see a doctor to get referred for that, then it gives us a lag time in terms of trying to kind of do the diagnosis and do the appropriate therapy afterwards.
And so if persons have those symptoms, if they have changes in their stool pattern, right? If they have different colors, bright red blood, if they see some darkness to their stool, should they go in to get a colonoscopy? Will insurance actually pay for that? How do they get their doctors to actually write that prescription for them?
So again, we're all cognizant of what's going on with the shift in age. So, like I said, 15, 20 years ago, people, oh, it's a hemorrhoid, we'll treat it like that. And now it's pretty much, we're going to do a colonoscopy. Now, insurance is not going to do that as a screening, meaning that you may have to do that under what's called a deductible. So if you've not met your deductible with your insurance, there may be some cost sharing for you. But I don't have any doctor colleagues that I know in primary care who would not refer for any kind of worrisome symptom, to be sure for peace of mind that that's not what we're dealing with.
And for those who may want peace of mind, what about Cologuard? Is that a substitute for colonoscopies? Is that something that younger people can even get their hands on? What do they do?
So Cologuard is only for average risk screening. So not because you have symptoms, not because you have family history, not because you've had polyps before, that doesn't qualify for that. That is only strictly average risk starting at age 45. That is a DNA test that they do where you submit a whole stool and they'll look for abnormal DNA. And if abnormal DNA is found, then they will refer you for a colonoscopy.
And is that something, do you need a prescription for Cologuard? How do they get their hands on that if they are qualifying persons?
So a primary care physician or some physician would have to send an order for the Cologuard to be sent, and then that gets mailed directly to the patient's house. Then the patient mails it back with the instructions that are sent, and then the physician gets the results and then relays the results to the patient.
There you go. Now, is there anything that if people say, hey, I want to reduce my risk of colorectal cancer, what would you tell them are the top 3 things that they should do to hopefully help them prevent being one of those persons who succumbs to this disease?
High fiber diet. So again, not the ultra processed foods, raw foods, Mediterranean diet, things like that, the fattier things. And again, trying to avoid the well done meats, because again, there's a potential link between those hydrocarbons from the char. Obesity is thought to be a factor in a lot of cancers. And so trying to do exercise, not live that kind of sedentary lifestyle, and then not smoking and not overindulging in things like alcohol, because again, these are potential carcinogens, or what we call things that potentially can lead to cancer and alter the DNA.
You know what? Thank you, Dr. Sanford. You have given us a lot to think about. People, check your stool. It is actually important, and go get those screenings if you see anything that's concerning.
Absolutely. We put you to sleep. It's a wonderful nap. Don't not do it. Okay.
Right. And that's my job. That's what I do.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sanford, and we'll see you soon.